Twinkle little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky.
Dead Space. A game upon release redefined the survival horror genre and placed horror back at the top of the priority list for many developers to come. The game took the industry by storm with its audio elements, gameplay innovations, and overall game design, which would lead it to getting a lot of attention along with many awards in the gaming world. To name a few, Game Audio Network Guild Awards gave Dead Space the Best Audio of the Year award back in 2009, along with the Sound Design of the Year award, and DICE would award it an Outstanding Achievement in Original Music Composition. Some people would have you believe that Dead Space is one of the greatest survival horror games of all time, and that it is a sci-fi horror masterpiece. However, like many, I don't think they would have expected a community to grow around this game for speedrunning per se. Dead Space has been known in the community as the worst game to speedrun out of the trilogy. However, the journey or progression this game has undertaken in the last few years in speedrunning is quite a fascinating story, with many strange techniques being undertaken by runners of today, with bizarre effects. This video will be mainly focusing on the progression of New Game Any Percent, and will be going through both console and PC runs. It will also be following a timeline format style of video, as I feel it is appropriate to look through the history of speedrunning in Dead Space. So without further ado, this is the Dead Space Any Percent speedrun world record progression.
Take out the tentacle, take out the tentacle. All right, he's gonna have to switch weapons now. What you just saw there was the blue energy field he shot out is the stasis device. That sends out a projectile that, when it explodes on impact, creates a sphere of slow time and slows down anything in it caught for a few seconds, including machinery and enemies.
As players were being cautious while navigating the halls of the Ishimura in their casual playthroughs of the game, there were some who started theorizing on how quickly the game could be beaten, what strategies could be used to achieve a faster time. On the 15th of October 2008, only one day after the release of Dead Space, a user known as Hill of Silence started a thread on the forums of Speed Demo's archives for the discussion on how they could start speedrunning Dead Space. Many would think of weapon choices, possible upgrades, and among other minor tricks like hugging the wall as you leave the quarantine in Chapter 1 to avoid getting hit from the necromorphs that spawn in from the ceiling vents, and other things to help prevent the loss of ammo, like taking out a slasher's legs then stomping them to death. These minor tricks would help them run the game. However, people would start officially speedrunning the game from the 8th of November 2008. A user known as Cough11 Cola began speedrunning the game. However, there are no records of this, as the YouTube channel has been deleted. Other players would start running the game but are recording individual levels instead of a full game run. Some users would add the time up and call these segmented runs. Segmented runs are runs that have been recorded in separate segments, then edited together for educational purposes, mostly to evaluate how quickly someone could possibly beat the game. The reasoning behind segmented runs at this time period was due to YouTube's video time limit being only 11 minutes long. This would later be changed to allow users to upload videos longer than 11 minutes. On the 3rd of April 2009, a user known on YouTube as WhoKnows4682 had done 2 different attempts that are still viewable to this day. With his first segmented run, he was able to achieve a time of 2 hours and 35 minutes. Through this time period, many would be theorizing over which platform was faster. Some say the intro was faster on console, however others would talk about load times for PC being faster, and it would be easier to speedrun Dead Space on the PC. Who Knows would make his second attempt to make a segmented speedrun for Dead Space, and that would prove to be more fruitful than his last. On the 16th of August 2009, Who Knows achieved a time of 2 hours and 29 minutes and 32 seconds. More users would be getting more impatient with the lack of Dead Space speedruns at the end of 2009. And in 2010, a new user known as Marshmallow would join the scene, with his first message being, quote, "This seems like the type of game where a run won't ever come come out unless I do it, and then it will be beaten 3 months later. It's unknown if Marshmallow would go on to speedrun the game, however it is clear by the end of January 2010 the Dead Space speedrunning forum had become inactive. 2 years later, on the 26th of July 2012, the forum had been revived by Ozzy889, with his first post being, "After my success with Dead Space 2, my friend got me a copy of the original Dead Space. I am restarting this thread in the hopes that there are still some folks who want to see this happen." Over the next few days, more and more users would be returning to post their interest in the revival of the Dead Space speedrunning scene. On the 27th of July, Ozzy would start his practice attempts of the game on the Xbox version, and after his first single segment run, he achieved a time of 3 hours, 12 minutes and 48 seconds. Over the following days, Ozzy would smash his time by 9 minutes and 8 seconds, bringing his time closer and closer to a sub 3. God Mode God would reference other runs done by Who Knows for Ozzy to watch and research on how to, or at least help in achieving the fastest time possible. Ozzy would look into Who Knows 4682's runs of Dead Space and would give credit in the forums where he had gotten ideas for strategies from giving a link to Who Knows' channel. As Ozzy would get faster, he would give out hope to the forum users that a sub 2 hours and 55 minutes was a possible outcome. And on the 12th of August 2012, Ozzy would then achieve it. Ozzy had beaten his personal best with a time of 2 hours, 52 minutes and 39 seconds. However, the next day, Ozzy would encounter a game-breaking glitch, in where he couldn't beat the game as he was able to skip enemy spawns and cutscenes. At this time, Ozzy didn't know what to make of it, but would look into a way of using this to his advantage, but not before he pushed the time down to 2 hours, 48 minutes and 57 seconds. At this time, another runner known as XMaverickHunter would start speedrunning the game as well, however he would focus on Impossible mode while Ozzy was speedrunning on Easy. In the beginning of 2013, more runners would come to join in speedrunning Dead Space, however one run was able to crush the competition. XMaverickHunter had returned with a 2 hour, 29 minute and 45 second run on the 10th of March 2013 on the Impossible difficulty, and this was ran on the PC version. Within this run, XMaverickHunter had only made use of one exploit, and that is the inventory cancel strategy. Upon placing the beacon down on the asteroid, you originally had to sit there and watch Isaac place it down and activate it. However, with this trick, as he is placing the beacon down, he opens up the inventory, which cancels the animation, but leaves the beacon attached to the asteroid. It is implied that XMaverickHunter found this trick, as this is the first appearance of it being used. On the 16th of April 2014, Ozzy had been looking into how he was able to skip the enemy spawns and skip the cutscenes for the rest of the chapter. And he found out that upon getting to the other side of the maintenance tunnel, if you use kinesis to pull the lever without dropping down, this would skip the brute fight along with every enemy until a certain point, allowing you to pull the marker all the way to the pedestal without the harassment of the slashers, twitchers, lurkers, and tentacles. This is because if you drop down to activate the switch, you actually hit a trigger for the brute to spawn in. It is currently unknown why the cutscenes don't play when you do this, or why the enemies outside aren't spawning in. On the 14th of December, Ozzy would make his final Dead Space speedrun, achieving a time of 2 hours, 36 minutes and 40 seconds. Another 2 years would pass before LivingLooneyBin would find another skip in 2016. Looney discovered that if you upgraded your kinesis by 1 or 2 power nodes, you can ride the gondola over to the fuel switch, where you are supposed to fight your way to it through some necromorphs. Looney would use his newly upgraded kinesis module to grab the switch without leaving the gondola, allowing him to activate the gondola to reverse back to the area he just left. This saves approximately 1 minute of time. After this, a runner known as HouseParty420 would begin running the game on PC, and on the 18th of May 2016, he would achieve a time of 2 hours, 36 minutes and 5 seconds, 35 seconds faster than Ozzy's run.
It is a 2:35. But it's not gonna be. Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Oh well.
Sometime later, HouseParty420 would become a moderator along with LivingLooneyBin for Speedrun.com and begin reviewing XMaverickHunter's run. While Looney would claim XMaverickHunter to have God mode due to it not taking damage upon a pregnant that appeared to have hit Maverick, with Maverick taking no damage, however this can easily be debunked, as in the video it can clearly be seen that the pregnant just barely missed him. Another accusation from HouseParty was that Maverick was using a speed hack of some sort to achieve what others could not. Looney opted out of the debate, which had led to the removal of the run on Speedrun.com. HouseParty would then try to make others see his way on the forums of Speed Demo's archives, only to be laughed out and criticized for his reasoning. Speed Demo's archive still to this day claims XMaverickHunter to be the world record holder for Dead Space speedrunning. On Speedrun.com, however, HouseParty420 was now the official world record holder for Dead Space at this time. However, that would soon change. In March of 2017, I would start speedrunning Dead Space on the Xbox One, and in my first run, I achieved a time of 3 hours and 14 minutes. Over the next few months, I would grind my time down, using my own techniques and the fuel skip in Chapter 3 to finally achieve a time of 2 hours and 35 minutes on the 16th of May 2017. I would continue to push the time down as far as I could with the techniques that were available at the time until the 2nd of December 2018, where I had achieved a record of 2 hours, 29 minutes and 29 seconds, which I had believed to be my peak or as far as I could push the console version of Dead Space. However, a new find by Suicide Machine had been found in Chapter 9, which was that you could use the 0G to fly through a crack in the ship's debris, which many had speculated that this could lead into a possible new skip to get to the end goal of this level, which was to obtain the Singularity Core. In the intended route for the game, you would first destroy the fuses in the cargo area so you can grab the radioactive balls and shoot them into space with your kinesis. You would then go into the Valor's airlock and traverse through the ship until you reach the engine room. Once there, you would encounter an NPC. Remember this part because it will come up again. Once you open the door leading to the corridor next to the engine room, the NPC will run into the escape route you will take later and lock the door behind him. Once you open the bulkhead door and go up the lift, you would destroy the fuses on either side of the room to stop the flash fire that would incinerate Isaac and prevent you from obtaining the core. Once the core is collected, you would run to the lower level and witness Hammond's demise, kill the brute. After this, you would notice the door is now unlocked, run to the airlock, get to the tram. End of chapter. 2019 would prove to be the major turning point, beginning the transformation of the run into an actual any percent, rather than a glitchless run. On the 1st of January 2019, LivingLooneyBin had been testing the newly found exploit to see if we could use it to skip most of the chapter. He first found that once on the other side of the debris, you could walk through part of the Valor and use a 0G jump to clip through a wall and into an out-of-bounds area over the corridors of the Valor. He would fly through the out-of-bounds area and land on an invisible barrier or object that would cause the world to start spinning, or at least that's what it would look like at first glance. At this period, Looney had made his discovery known on Discord and began routing for this new skip, which was an exciting time as this was to be the first actual skip in the game to skip nearly an entire level. He also discovered since you never left the 0G area by the intended means, the game still thinks that you are in 0G, allowing you to perform jumps and fly through the interior of the ship. Looney would make the route but find it would soft lock the chapter. This was because if you didn't complete the first objective, which was to get rid of the radioactive balls, the airlock would still be locked, trapping you in an exploding ship with no way out. The chapter under this new route would be as follows. You would first send the balls of radiation into space, fly through the crack of the debris, and then jump into the out of bounds while your point of view would be spinning once you have landed. Use aim to locate one of the elevators in the Valor, preferably the one at the top of the level or the right one. Once located, you would time yourself until you would be aiming at the elevator, then jump to it. You would then open the door and jump into the elevator and use it to get to the top part of the level. You would then do a series of jumps through some debris and make your way around the corner to the NPC we talked about earlier, skipping most of the level and the mess hall quarantine. Once in the engine room, you would jump up to the second area, then jump back down a little bit, then activate the lift and then quickly jump back up to avoid the elevator from phasing through you, soft locking the game. You would fly through the flames, grab the core, beat the brute. However, this variant of this skip had one major flaw, and that is, since the game still thinks you're in 0G, walking through to the door by intended means is impossible, as the game doesn't allow Isaac to run over certain floor types in 0G. Before we would open the door and then fly through, but thanks to this amazing end-level design, we can't even get to the door. However, Looney would think of something, and that something would be to try and use aim to tilt Isaac's perspective until you are able to open the door.
Warning, catastrophic failure of fuel containment. Evacuate the vessel immediately.
There we go. Need to work on this fucking setup for that, holy shit.
Looney would revise the skip in the next month. However, on the same day, Suicide Machine would make yet another interesting find that would challenge how runners would play the game, and that clip that he shared was named Tilting Isaac. In the video, Suicide Machine opened the door out of the 0G room in Chapter 2 and began melee walking towards the ramp, and as soon as he had gotten to the top of the ramp, the game tilted Isaac's perspective, allowing him to levitate slightly, but only for a couple of seconds.
Continue. Even though it says exiting zero gravity, it still kind of applies the thing with attaching you to surfaces. So if you end up on a slope and then you stop punching, you're tilted. And it behaves like the gravity was tilted with you.
Looney would find a use for tilting Isaac on the following day, using it to get over the railing back in this area of the level and again in the quarantine room to skip past it, and to get to the lurkers earlier than expected. He would also find a way to deactivate the glitch by visiting a save station or a store. This is commonly known as the tilt. The new route would be as follows. After visiting the store for the line gun that will be needed for the intended death in Chapter 12, grabbing the Kinesis module, go to the 0G area to collect the first part of the thermite bomb, then perform the tilt, and then use said tilt to get over the railing to leave the area quicker. Then use the tilt again to get over a table, skipping the quarantine trigger point. Use it again to get over the railing and drop down to the lower level. Collect the last part, and then deactivate the glitch by visiting the store or save station, and continue as normal. This overall saves about 1 minute. A month later, on the 22nd of February, Looney would post an optimized jump setup for the Chapter 9 skip to be able to jump straight to the elevator without the world spinning for a quicker progression within the chapter.
You can get into a spot like this. And from here, you want to put basically the middle dot. See this, there's this black beam, trying to circle it. Put the middle dot along the top beam, and then if you see the left side, this is a bit complicated, the left side of Isaac's arm, you want to line it up with this line. So if I do that, then line those up, and then jump. You'll get onto the elevator, and you just need to jump over to this elevator.
Looney would come back again with another time save on the 8th of March with the Chapter 3 tilt. Upon entering the vacuum, Looney opens the door leading to the 3-level room, where you need to take 2 lifts down to the lower level with the corruption on the floor slowing your progress as you move slower while walking on the corruption. After opening the door, Looney would back away, entering the vacuum again, and begin meleeing towards the door. However, as some may remember, there isn't a ramp here, but Looney uses the door itself for this trick, achieving a tilt allowing you to use it to get over the railing on the 3rd level and fall down to the lowest level. However, this would prove to be slightly inconsistent with another tilt able to occur where it would be a super tilt, and it would be challenging enough to open the next door, and if you didn't land quick enough, Isaac would die, resetting your progress. The route for runners that would use this would be get to the vacuum, then perform the tilt, then use it on the railing, and then kill Isaac to load in the checkpoint next to the malfunctioning door, and continue as normal. For the death is because the corridor leading to the engine room is deloaded and requires you to reload the chapter in order to progress. This would save approximately 30 seconds if done right. On the 3rd of May, Looney discovered a way to skip all the video-related cutscenes with some interesting effects by deleting the end folder located within the movies folder within the game files, Once applied, the game would automatically skip all video log related cutscenes and give the runner the next objective without the waiting time. At this point, this would save from 8 minutes to 10 minutes. This would be later known as the category of NRV% or no rig videos for runners that wanted to run under these conditions, and would later be implemented into any percent by popular demand within the community. 2 days later, Looney had revised the skip in Chapter 9 for a more optimized version. Instead of jumping into the elevator in the out of bounds area, it was discovered that you could land on it and then activate it from outside, allowing the elevator to load in some of the map, allowing the runner to get to the corridor just before the engine room with half the corridor being deloaded, allowing the runner to jump inside the room, then open the door, then let the door start to close, then stop it from closing to opening again, resulting in the area reloading again. This stops the NPC from spawning in and the door from closing and locking, allowing the runner to fly through once they have completed the prior objectives, rather than having to tilt Isaac's perspective in order to open the door. The updated route now would be as soon as the runner had jumped onto the elevator, activate it from outside, then jump to the hole in the corridor, and then jump inside, run through the door and let it start closing, then run back into it, stopping the closure, allowing for the rest of the level to load in without triggering the NPC, resulting in the door that is supposed to lock being left open, allowing the runner to escape with ease, allowing for a time save up to 5 minutes and 30 seconds. After this, Looney would start testing out of bounds in Chapter 6, and on the 9th of May, Looney would post on Discord the Chapter 6 out of bounds trick. What the trick is used for is to kill the Weezer in the next area quicker and get back to the ground level in the previous area a lot faster. In the video, Looney places a time mine down, then moves to a specific spot, and when the drag tentacle pops out and grabs Isaac, the time mine would blow up, taking the tentacle with it, causing Isaac to fly into the ceiling, allowing the runner to kill the Weezer from that corridor and get back to the room they just left via an out of bounds route. This would approximately save 2 minutes. At the start of June 2019, I would start theorizing about skipping Hammond's cutscene in Chapter 4, and on the 3rd of June, I would put my theory to the test. And it took a couple of attempts, but I actually got it to work. Once you would get to the door leading to Hammond after riding the lift down to the escape pods, you would open the door, then run in and back out very quickly, skipping Hammond's dialogue, allowing you to fight the brute earlier than expected. Unfortunately, no one would use it in a run along with myself on the account of it being very hard to achieve and very inconsistent. However, on the 14th of August, I was able to shorten the record down to a time of 2 hours, 25 minutes and 23 seconds, 4 minutes and 6 seconds faster than the previous record. However, a legend known only by R3sis was on the horizon, and he had his sights set on optimizing the Dead Space speedrun routes even further in 2020. On the 5th of June 2020, Looney found a way to use the necromorph that spawns in when you shoot the vent in New Game Plus to skip not just the quarantine in Chapter 1, but the cutscene that plays when you reunite with Kendra and Hammond. He does this by using a tool or a gun to destroy the vent, while Kendra and Hammond's dialogue plays out, then by luring the necromorph outside and severing a leg, and then by bringing it close enough to the door to stop it from closing and locking. He then quickly activates the panel as the necromorph crawls through. Looney then runs back to the door, killing the slasher, and walks back to Kendra and Hammond just before the quarantine activates. He then uses the elevator to go to where the tram would be at the end of the chapter. However, there was still a problem with that strategy. The door that leads back to the elevator is locked due to the fuse you would normally break. R3sis would start looking into Chapter 1, looking at using tutorials to save time. I believe he got this idea from my runs, but I may be wrong on that point, because in Chapter 2, if you get 2 tutorials, or 3 if you buy a weapon from the store, if you don't close down the tutorial for the kinesis, it will get replaced by a schematic tutorial. But if you try to open the door straight after the tutorial gets replaced, you can open it without closing the schematic tutorial. The reason for this bug is because the game thinks that once the first tutorial gets replaced by the second, it thinks that the tutorial has been cancelled, allowing for a 3-second window to activate panels or interfaces or even doors before the game corrects itself, forcing you to exit out of the tutorial before you can interact with anything again. While R3sis and Looney were looking into new ways of speeding the game's routing up, I had lowered the time by 1 minute and 20 seconds, setting the record at 2 hours, 24 minutes and 3 seconds on the 19th of May. On the 4th of August, R3sis finds that if you replicate what happens in Chapter 2 with the tutorials in Chapter 1, you can skip tutorials that prevent you from progressing. R3sis opens up the movement tutorial, and as the next tutorial replaces the first one, he shows us that you can open the door sooner, saving 5 seconds of waiting waiting time. Before this, to open the door just as the tutorial pops up, you would have to hit the A, X or E button at a precise frame to open the door as the tutorial was popping up. However, by using this trick, you can open the door every time without fail, and not on a precise frame. With this trick in hand, you can do this at the second interface to load up the diagnostics of the Ishimura, saving an additional 3 seconds. 8 days later, on the 12th of August, Arthresis posts a recent discovery of his on the Discord server, which was when you enter the flight lounge in Chapter 1, you can manipulate Hammond's movement so he'll either stop in front of the door or closer to the door. As he is moving towards his stopping position, by blocking his attempts to approach it, you can force Hammond to walk towards the door. If you are successful, Hammond will stop next to the door, and when you open it, it will stay open. This is because enemies, NPCs, and Isaac are classed as entities within the game. Doors respond differently to entities, staying open when in close proximity to them. Objects like bodies, crates, items do not have any effect on doors. This would be known as the Hammond skip. However, going back to what I had said previously about the door being locked due to the fuse would normally break shortly after picking up the plasma cutter, because we have now skipped the chase sequence, you cannot get back to the Kellion. Or so we would think. Arthresis had a solution for that. And on the 24th of August, he showed us that by using the line gun in Chapter 1 and to push it through the door and use the alt fire to shoot a timed mine into the room, it would destroy the fuse on the other side, allowing you to skip the chase sequence and the cutscene where Hammond and Kendra tells you to fix the tram. Looney would also tell me that the contact beam would also work on this door and it would destroy the fuse on the other side, allowing use for console on New Game Plus. Some people were confused on how exactly you would be able to have 9,000 credits at the start of the game, which is how much the line gun costs in the store. As I said to Looney and others, you could pick up the small medpack from the Kellion that would sell for 1,000 credits, then the other small medpack in the shelves that would add up to 2,000 credits, along with a bundle of credits which can vary between 1,000 and 2,500 credits, so as long as the game gives you 2,000 credits as a minimum, you'll be up to at least 4,000 credits. And after you perform the Hammond skip, you can access the toilets before you head into the elevator. There will be a large medpack waiting for you there, which will sell for 5,000, giving you just enough to buy the line gun. This skip would save approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds, which can be done on New Game any % as well. Arthresis would continue searching through this game, trying to find something that would be able to really break the way runners would speedrun through Dead Space. However, on the 21st of August, he found something completely different, and that would be a way to skip the long way around the centrifuge in Chapter 3. By stasising the railing near the interface, then by activating the centrifuge, you can walk onto the railing as it begins to rise. And once the stasis would wear off, you would be able to walk on top of the railing next to the corruption to get back to the door and get to the drag tentacle sequence sooner than expected. This would save an additional 30 seconds. Later, Arthresis would start testing another lead into shortening the routing in the game, and on the 7th of September he would find the lift warps. With this, by placing an object like a cabinet or a table in front of a lift, you could boost yourself either flying into the ceiling or being sent through the floor. However, he wouldn't find a use for this for quite some time, but he would soon find something else to occupy the community's time, and on the 13th of September he would find something very interesting. Remember that long cutscene at the start of the game where you can't do anything until it ends? Well, Arthresis had found a way to skip it, making it so the run would start when you gain control of Isaac, but the moderators would only allow the use of the intro skip if the timer would start at 3 minutes and 26 seconds, which is how long the cutscene plays, with the NRV rule set for any %. The way runners are now able to skip the cutscene is by use of a cheat engine, and that in the game there are initial checkpoint identifiers, and by changing the base code of the first cutscene to when you gain control, you are able to skip the intro. The next day he would find a new route at the end of Chapter 4, and in this new route, upon returning to the other side of the trench after Hammond fixes the ADS cannon, by jumping to the left railing and then jumping to the other side of the trench, you can jump out of bounds and then fall on top of the level. By falling off the ceiling of one of these rooms, you can fall on top of the bridge's main area, then by falling through a hole in the ceiling, you will be able to return to the tram area, saving an additional 20 seconds approximately. Arthresis returned to Discord with yet another discovery, one that would change the way players would speedrun the game, and one that would lead into breaking most of the game's chapters, that would also lead towards a bigger gap between console and PC, which would be known in the community as Pulse boosting. On the 18th of September, our freezer shows off a new skip in Chapter 4 that would skip Hammond's dialogue, the brute fight, and the long ride down to the lowest level of the bridge in the elevator. How he managed this was by using the pulse rifle's alternate fire while running into a wall. The game would instantly pull Isaac back quite a distance. Doing it on a slope or a set of stairs would fling Isaac backwards. With higher FPS, the fling would be much more intense. This seems to have something to do with the pushback effect when you would melee walls or snap aim into a wall. However, it is unclear as to why this occurs. The controls to alt fire are the same as the stomp controls, so runners now unbind the stomp so that they can perform the trick without that little hiccup, as the trick requires you to aim and alt fire at the same time. Using this on the stairs just before the lift that leads to the captain's nest in Chapter 4 flings Isaac over the save station railing, and he falls under the main bridge, oddly enough landing on a floor that is solid. By running forwards to the elevator shaft, Isaac will drop down by a foot, then by running around the side, Isaac will fall. If done correctly, he will land at the bottom of the shaft. And then all you need to do is fall off the lower level ceiling to die and respawn inside the room you fell onto, skipping Hammond's dialogue, the brute fight, and riding the elevator down to that location, prompting only one elevator ride back up. This saves approximately 3 minutes. Remember Arthresis boasting about the lift warps? Well, on the 19th of September, he found a pretty interesting use for it, to skip Kyan's cutscene in Chapter 10, by grabbing a table from the lower level and placing it adjacent to the lift, then pressing the interface to make it go down, then running into the corner of the elevator. Isaac will start to hover, and the elevator will come back up, and while running, you can use the invisible barrier that stops you from falling off of the elevator to climb onto the table, which in return will force Isaac through the floor and outside of the map on an out of bounds ledge. From there, you can line yourself up, run, and fall onto the door past the elevator that Kyan will unlock for you at the end of his cutscene. Finally, you carefully use aim to pull back while facing the door, so when you fall off and press the interact key, you'll be able to open the door in combination with the pause buffering, pausing the game, giving it time to load in the area around you so that you can land rather than fall and die, or worse, continue falling into a bottomless abyss. It was a very interesting find, and people began to speculate on how they could use this to skip the chapter, and Looney began theorizing about how many nav cards it would take to complete the chapter, and began testing it. Sometime later, Looney would post on Discord the Chapter 10 skip. The route started off as normal. You would go to the 0G area, grab the nav card from there, then go back to the main area, kill the necromorphs, then perform the trick to get down to the lower level, then go to the shuttle in the docking bay, insert the nav card and the core into the shuttle, incinerate the hunter, and get back to the tram, allowing up to an 11-minute time save. This works because the game only checks for one nav card when you try to plant it into the shuttle, as getting past Kyan is the only way to get down there, and he won't let you in unless you have all 3 of the nav cards. Arthresis would yet again come back with another strategy, skipping the Chapter 7 quarantine this time. In Chapter 7 there is a moment where you are trapped in a room with a bunch of slashers, and they won't spawn in until Kendra's video log is over. This in my best attempt takes me about 1 minute and 12 seconds to get out of the room. And on the 20th of September, Arthresis would post a video of him taking the box of swarms up to the room with him, and as I have said previously, all enemy types are considered entities in the game, even the swarms. So as he opens the door, he runs through, breaking the box, and then he stasises them. And then after completing the objective, he pulse boosts off a wall directly in front of the door, whizzing through with such speed that he skips the quarantine, which has the potential to save 1 minute and 15 seconds. A few hours after this though, I would start attempting another go to lower the time even further on console. However, what I got instead was a unexpected result. What the fuck? Wait, what? No way! So with this unexpected event, what happened was in Chapter 5, as I rode the lift I saw a stasis pack, so as I was nearing the top I tried to pick it up. When I couldn't, I dropped an item to try and pick it up again. So I was mashing the A button while trying to run off the lift, and I had gotten wedged in between the lift and the lift's invisible barrier, which had sent me through the roof. Looney, Sharkcat, Arthresis and pretty much everyone else was trying to replicate what I had managed to do. However, they had found it very inconsistent or hard to do so, including myself. However, I did manage to do it again, and managed to use it to skip the entire chapter, which would save at least 5 minutes of the runtime. But the chapter 5 skip, or as Arthresis would call it, the TBR skip, would remain very inconsistent, with many like Looney and Arthresis trying to get it down to become easier to pull off. The lift launch requires a frame rate of 30 per second to pull off. On the 21st of September, Arthresis posts on Discord a way to get around the quarantine fight in chapter 12 by using a pulse boost to get over the trigger point, which would save 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Like sprint forward, hold your space, tap your right mouse, and you get over the top.
An optimization in chapter 2 would be found by LivingLooneyBin, and after some testing later on this day, Looney posts about a pulse boost launch off of a bench located before the tilt would be performed in the run. By lining up the dots while aiming down sights, Looney then performs the pulse boost, flinging himself onto the upper level. This trick has the potential to save up to 20 seconds of the run. However, this trick does require you to open the vacuum door and then open the door you previously left to reload the vacuumed area. This happens because before you cross the platform in a normal playthrough, there is a load trigger for the vacuum room. Launching from the bench skips this trigger, and that's why the room is not loaded in. The new route for chapter 2 is to go to this area, then perform what is known as the bench launch, go to the 0G area, pick up the part for the thermite bomb, then perform the tilt, use the tilt to get over the railing and to skip the quarantine, then head to the morgue, pick up the captain's rig, get back to the tram. Even later on this day, Arthresis would once again find another discovery, this time in chapter 11. He found that if you can activate the 0G room and then get back into the corridor you just came out of, you can use 0G to get to Nicole a lot sooner than expected. However, this would come with a catch. Upon returning to this corridor, the doors are now locked, and he also found that the doors outside this set of corridors are also locked, resulting in a soft lock. Arthresis and many others would continue poking and prodding to make use of this new development for later runs. While this was happening, Looney was testing out pulse boosts for chapter 3, and on the 24th of September, this is what he had found. After doing a few pulse boosts after you depart from the tram, you can get on top of the level into outer bounds. After this, by running over the airlock and falling off the level, you'll die and spawn back inside the airlock. With this, you can get into the engine room a lot faster and complete the chapter, as the game only checks if the last objective is complete and disregards the other 2 objectives, cutting 6 minutes out of the runtime. Later on, Sharkcat would post an interesting find of his own, and that's the chapter 8 quarantine skip. By pulse boosting off of one of the holograms next to the entrance, he found that the game launches Isaac up and over the trigger point for the quarantine, saving an additional 30 seconds. At some point, a change in the leaderboards had been made following the discovery of pulse boosting, prompting myself and Angry British Cat to split the consoles due to the pulse boost trick becoming more intense the more frames the runner has. And with consoles being capped at 30 FPS and PC runners being able to reach 200 FPS, it made sense that they should be split now. In chapter 12, Sharkcat had been testing to see what other uses the pulse boost could be used for, and he found that you could use the pulse boost to get on top of one of the structures, and then do an additional boost to get on top of the building you later exit after the Nicole cutscene and before the Hive Mind boss battle. He would post these findings on the Dead Space Speedrunning Discord on the 25th of September. However, just one day later, he would post again with a third boost. With this boost, by following a set of movements, then pulse boosting, he found that you would land closer to the door that you would go through after the Nicole is dead cutscene. Looney had always known about the possibility of the chapter 12 skip, as there is a trigger to spawn in the setup for the boss battle on the other side of this locked door. On the 1st of October, R-Freesis had done it again and found a way to skip the trench sequence where you would normally take cover from the death barrier in the form of the asteroids. He did this by jumping to a railing like the Chapter 4 Out of Bounds route back to the tram. He then orientates himself and jumps over the trigger point for the death barrier waves and onto the edge of the trench, allowing him to make his way quickly and safely to the ADS cannon. With this trick, runners can save up to 10 seconds. LivingLooneyBin and other runners decided to continue digging around in Chapter 11 to see how they could use R-Freesis' discovery to their advantage and get past the soft lock. However, they did not expect to find a way to skip collecting the marker and the quarantine, but on the 3rd of October they had found just that with a series of pulse boosts. Looney had discovered that shortly after leaving the tram and getting underneath it in front of a ramp, and then by doing a pulse boost, the game could fling Isaac high enough to hit the checkpoint just before the quarantine or after you exit the elevator. Sometime later though, Looney and other runners like Sharkat and Crazy Bad Gaming would find another skip in Chapter 11. By doing a smaller boost than the previous one, they could get on top of the tram room and then be able to fall into the corridor past the locked door. From there, they performed a pulse boost and the game flings Isaac up like the previous variation. However, like the last, Isaac would die but respawn next to the 0G area where you pull the marker over to the shuttle. They also discovered the way to get around the soft lock after getting to Nicole early, which was after you call back the shuttle, you could immediately jump onto the ceiling, then clip through a wall, then do a series of jumps before clipping back in bounds, and then turn off the 0G and wait by the railing for the ramp to appear next to the shuttle so they could complete the chapter. This in turn would save 8 minutes of the run. The following day, Looney would go on to find an alternative way to getting on top of the building parallel to the shuttle. By pulse boosting off the ramp leading away from the shuttle, he flings himself on top of the shuttle. Then by turning to his left and running along the side of the shuttle, and after dropping down, he boosts up a pole until he can reach enough height to be able to walk across an invisible barrier to get on top of the building much faster than the previous variation. Utilizing these strats, people began speculating on when the record would be broken again and how much further the record would be shortened down to. However, they would not have to wait long, as on the 14th of October, a Russian speedrunner known in the speedrunner community as Rampancy would absolutely wreck the record and shorten it by 31 minutes and 8 seconds, bringing the time down to a 1 hour, 52 minutes and 55 second run. A truly unbelievable run. Finally, after 8 years of finding exploits and skips, the 2-hour barrier had been finally broken. However, this isn't where the story ends, as there would be more activity on the leaderboards and more activity for finding new routes and skips within the game to come. On the 23rd of October, a new trick would be found in food storage after dispatching the Leviathan by LivingLooneyBin, which would have you use a melee walk across to the Leviathan's body texture at a specific spot. Then by clipping out of bounds, the runner would be able to use the 0G to climb to the top of the room. Then by getting over this door here with a well-placed tie in mind, the runner would get blasted over the door. They then would get back in bounds by running over to a small door on the left-hand side and performing a pause buffer trick for the room to load back in. This would later be optimized between R-Freesis, Sharkat and LivingLooneyBin to optimize Looney's out-of-bound trick using the tentacle to get lifted up into the out-of-bounds area, where on the 25th of October, R-Freesis had made a video showing off his new route, giving runners a way to skip half, if not most, of Chapter 6. This would be optimized again so that the runner uses a pulse boost to get out of bounds instead of melee walking. The reason that they have to go out of bounds to complete the chapter after killing the Leviathan is due to the locked door that will remain to be locked until they kill all the Wheezers. With this skip, you skip killing all of the Wheezers and only have to fight a Brute and the Leviathan. The new route is now to get to the main hub, then kill the Guardian, kill the Brute, use the tentacle to push you into the ceiling, navigate through the out of bounds area. After falling, perform the pause buffer, kill the Leviathan, clip out of bounds again by performing the pulse boost, then get to the door to pause buffer back in bounds, and then get back to the tram. Using this skip saves roughly 6 minutes of the run. On the same day, R-Freesis would show off another optimization to the Chapter 5 route with a fight skip. In this, he pulse boosts off a metal wall, flinging him over the trigger point for the fight to initiate, skipping the battle with the Hunter, a Lurker and 4 Spitters in the ICU, and saving up to 40 seconds. Rampancy continues to impress the community, and on the 31st of October, he beats his best again by 5 minutes and 46 seconds, bringing the record down to 1 hour, 47 minutes and 9 seconds. And it wouldn't be too long after this that another optimization would be found by none other than R-Freesis, when he shows off what he has found in Chapter 5, the Mercer dialogue skip, that would save nearly a minute. How he was able to skip Mercer's dialogue was that upon dying in this cutscene, you aren't sent back to an earlier checkpoint, you are instead sent to the next checkpoint, starting the fight with the Hunter. The pulse boost is indeed a very interesting trick or technique to use. However, a new form of pulse boosting would be found on the 16th of December by LivingLooneyBin. Looney found by standing still and performing the pulse boost, the game would fling the player, but it would fling them to the left rather than being flung backwards. This variation of pulse boosting would be later known as the standing boost, and Sharkat would go on to use this type of boost for optimizing a skip for a later chapter. The chapter that Sharkat, LivingLooneyBin, Crazy Bad Gaming, Radish, R3's Zio, and others would be optimizing as a group effort to get this down would be chapter 12. As they now felt that they had a way to finally crack this chapter and skip it like so many others, and later in the same day as the discovery of the standing boost, they had finally done it. They had made a setup to optimize in chapter 12, so now all you have to do is to perform this setup, skipping most of the chapter, leaving you with the boss fight at the end. Using this skip would save up to 9 minutes of the run. It does require a death at the end because, like the cutscene skip, this skip actually skips the cutscene for the boss. However, this wouldn't be the last thing to be found in 2020, as R3 had found another cutscene skip, and by cutscene skip I mean the NPC cutscenes like Mercer's dialogue, and like this one, the Lurker's introduction to the player. Once again, R3 shows us by doing the same trick that we did in chapter 5, you will respawn after the interaction has ended, allowing you entry into the lab where you can get up close to those little rats. Using this would save up to 20 seconds. With the new year, a lot of people talk about ending the year with a bang, and the same could be said for a French speedrunner known in the community as Zio, who had beaten the world record on the 31st of December by 4 minutes and 9 seconds, bringing the time down to 1 hour and 43 minutes. And I have to say, that's a really awesome way to ring in the new year.
Allez! Ouais, tout à fait. Tout à fait dindable. Est-ce que c'est le sub 42? Enfin, le sub 43? Ah, je pense pas. On va voir. Yes! Allez! Woo!
However, on the 21st of January 2021, Rampancy had done it again, smashing the new time by 8 minutes and 40 seconds, setting the new world record at 1 hour, 34 minutes and 20 seconds. With Rampancy's new run, it would seem like the record couldn't be brought down any further, but that wouldn't stop some people from trying or to stop digging through the game for something else to exploit into the speedrun strategies. And that's exactly what they did, as on the 7th of April, Looney had found an even greater skip that would make the Hammond and Brute skip obsolete with his recent discovery.
Just run so you're not moving left or right, then when right foot's forward, pulse boost. And then you're here at the 0G section.
With this skip, Looney lines himself up with the railing, then performs a pulse boost into outer bounds, then performs another one to get catapulted into the ceiling, which flings Isaac so far that he ends up colliding with a checkpoint trigger, resulting in Looney respawning at the bulkhead door leading to the trench, which would become known as the Chapter 4 skip. The new route is as follows. Get to the bridge deck, perform the Chapter 4 skip, get to the ADS cannon, defend the Ishimura from the asteroids, then get back to the tram. The new skip brings the amount of time saved in this chapter up to 9 minutes now. Other members of the community started thinking of using this trick in Chapter 8, as it shares some of the same areas as in Chapter 4. However, in this skip we have just seen, Isaac ends up in an area he can't go to in Chapter 8, so the other runners would have to find a way to get the game to fling Isaac in a different direction, or have him land on something. Zio tried this new trick out in Chapter 8, and found if you activate the doors of the elevator, the level 3 area will load in. After he had done that, he performed the Chapter 4 skip in Chapter 8, resulting in Isaac landing on the top of the level 3 map, still in out of bounds. He then performs a standing boost, ending up with this result. By performing the standing boost, he was able to be flung past the checkpoint trigger just before the ADS battle with the Chapter 8 boss, skipping the array, saving up to 4 minutes of the runtime. The new route for this chapter is as follows: perform the Chapter 4 skip strat, then perform the standing boost next to the ceiling vent on top of the level, defeat the boss, then get back to the tram. You wouldn't think that Chapter 11 could be optimized anymore, but you would be wrong, as Looney had found a new way to get to the shuttle docking area without the need for a death. On the 9th of April, Looney had discovered by performing the pulse boost in the marker skip of Chapter 11 and pause buffering at a specific spot in time, he could make Isaac land in the corridor that leads to the shuttle and the 0G interface, which could save up to 5 seconds due to not dying and respawning.
The camera reset, align that up, like that, and now this is a pretty, you only need to do the boost like just as your right foot passes horizontal. And then pause buffer. And you're in. And this works like every time.
At this time, the new moderators for the Dead Space speedrun leaderboard had made a new timing rule, as it made more sense for the run to be timed from the point where the runner gains control of Isaac rather than timed as the game fades in from difficulty selection, cutting out an additional 3 minutes and 26 second margin, 4 minutes and 45 seconds for console. Looney had started speedrunning not too long after this, and on the 10th of April he had beaten Rampancy's run by 4 minutes and 28 seconds, setting the record down to 1 hour, 29 minutes and 52 seconds.
Ah yeah, it's still sub 130. 129.52. Let's fucking go, dude. We did it.
However, it would not be too long until Rampancy had caught wind of this and set out to reclaim the world record with a 1 hour, 24 minute and 50 second run, holding a 5 minute and 2 second lead over LivingLooneyBin. However, Sharkat would go on to smash the record with a time of 1 hour, 18 minutes and 59 seconds on the 14th of April.
Alright, we're out of there, let's go! Oh my god, this is so close to 118, dude. Oh my god, wait, is it? Holy fuck! Yo! Holy shit, yo, let's go! Oh my god. Let's fucking go. I ain't never seen a 120. I ain't never seen a 119.
But once again, Rampancy was hot on his trail and had beaten Sharkat's record on the same day by 2 minutes and 31 seconds with a runtime of 1 hour, 16 minutes and 28 seconds, marking this month to be the most competitive in Dead Space speedrunning since the release in 2008 for Dead Space 1. Rampancy continues to speedrun Dead Space, attempting to get the time down as far as it will go. He would go on to beat the record again with a time of 1 hour, 15 minutes and 2 seconds, which he achieved on the 20th of April 2021, being the current world record for Dead Space New Game Any Percent. From being known as the worst out of the trilogy to speedrun to the fastest record out of the trilogy, Dead Space has been quite the underdog of the series in the speedrunning scene, but now the question is, what will help to push the record into the domain of the 1 hour barrier? And to that I say, maybe this.
Alright, so I'm not 100% sure if this has been found yet, but you can actually interact with this panel when this thing, tram isn't loaded here. You get this if you leave the tram repair too fast, so the tram's still down there. But I haven't found a way to hit it just running off, but if I teleport up there, you can see that you can hit it. So I don't know, I know there's other panels out of bounds that don't have these buttons. I tried briefly with those, didn't seem to work, but if there's any other panels with the buttons attached to them out of bounds, we could maybe just hit them and find more skips.
Shortly after Rampancy had posted his run, Sharkat had found this interesting new development where you can interact with the interface from the tram in a different area from where it is supposed to be in. As in the video, Sharkat has shown to us that these floating interfaces are interactable, so if or when the community finds a way to use these to the runner's advantage, the sub-hour barrier may finally be broken. It is indeedly remarkable how quickly the community had come together to find out how quickly Dead Space could be beaten in, to how far they have come from segmented runs to single segment runs, from a time of 3 hours 3 minutes and 40 seconds to a 1 hour 15 minutes and 2 seconds. The run's routing has seen tremendous work and merit to all of those involved, which should give us all hope into seeing that 1 hour barrier be broken and surpassed. I would like to give special thanks to LivingLooneyBin for confirming certain things and reviewing my findings and correcting what I had gotten wrong. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed or thought I did a good job on the video, then a like rating would be very much appreciated. Write me a comment and I look forward to reading it later. And if you're new here, then sign up to join the British Alliance today and I'll see you on the front lines. And have a good one.